The apartment smelled like burnt rice and cheap candles. She stood near the window, arms crossed, watching him move through the shadows of their tiny kitchen. The flickering light from the single bulb made everything feel unstable, like the ground beneath her feet could give way any second. "You don't need to lie to me." He stopped. His shoulders stiffened like someone had pulled a string too tight. Then he turned, and that soft smile appeared. The one that always made her stomach twist. The one that felt too practiced. "I'm not lying." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But something had shifted. Something small. Something she couldn't name yet but could feel crawling under her skin like a warning. Before she could speak, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the door. Hard, deliberate, not friendly. He didn't move, didn't even flinch. She frowned. "Are you expecting someone?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched. The knocking came again. Harder this time. More insistent. She walked to the door, glancing back at him. His face was unreadable. Blank. She opened it. 2 men in tailored black suits stood in the hallway. Their expressions were carved from stone. Professional. Cold. Dangerous. One of them stepped forward and bowed deeply. Not a nod. Not a polite greeting. A bow. The kind you give to someone who holds your life in their hands. "Chairman?" the man said, his voice clipped and respectful. "The board is waiting." Her breath caught in her throat. She turned slowly, looking back at him. He stood frozen in the doorway of the kitchen, face unreadable, hands clenched at his sides. Her voice came out broken, barely a whisper. "Chairman? Of what?" He said nothing. The men waited. And in that silence, everything she thought she knew began to crack wide open. Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Afro-Korean Story Vault, the hub of great stories. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Story Vault for great Korean stories on live, mafia romance, betrayal, second chance, among others. If you want to know how a lie this big starts, how love can be built on deception, whether she ever forgives him, and what happens when the truth destroys everything, stay until the very end, because this story doesn't go where you think. And the ending will wreck you. It started 6 months ago. She was broken then. Not the kind of broken people notice. Not crying in public bathrooms or falling apart in grocery stores or posting cryptic quotes on social media. The quiet kind. The kind where you smile at strangers and answer, "I'm fine," when people ask, and then go home and stare at the ceiling wondering if anyone would actually miss you if you disappeared. She'd left everything behind. A toxic relationship that had drained her dry. A city that felt like a cage. A version of herself she didn't recognize anymore and wasn't sure she wanted to. She moved into a neighborhood where no one asked questions, where people kept their heads down and minded their business and everyone was running from something. That's where she met him. He was sitting on the steps outside her building, head tilted back against the railing, eyes closed like he was trying to disappear into the concrete. She noticed him because he looked tired, not sleepy. Tired in the soul, the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too much for too long. She didn't say anything the first time, just walked past, glancing at him briefly before heading inside. But the second time, he was there again. Same spot, same posture, same hollowed-out expression. This time, he opened his eyes, and he smiled. Not a charming smile, not a flirty one. Just human. Real. "Long day?" she asked. He laughed quietly, the sound rough around the edges. "Something like that." That was it. No grand introduction, no destiny, no sparks flying, just 2 people who were both trying to survive. They started talking, small things at first. The weather, the broken elevator that hadn't worked in 3 months, the stray cat. that lived in the alley and hissed at everyone except him. Then bigger things. He told her he'd come from Korea years ago. No papers. No family waiting for him. No money to his name. He said he worked odd jobs under the table. Construction. Deliveries. Whatever paid cash and didn't ask questions. He said he was nobody. Invisible. Just trying to get by. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe around someone. Because he wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to fix her or save her or turn her into someone she wasn't. He was just there, existing beside her without demands. They fell into a rhythm. He'd knock on her door around 8 most nights, holding takeout containers or a bag of cheap wine from the corner store. They'd sit on her floor because she didn't have a couch yet and couldn't afford one. They'd eat, talk, laugh about stupid things that didn't matter. He told her stories about growing up in Seoul, about his grandmother who raised him after his parents died, about how he used to dream of being someone important, someone who mattered. She told him about her ex, about how she used to believe love meant sacrifice until she realized she'd sacrificed everything and gotten nothing back but bruises on her self-worth. He listened, really listened. Not the kind of listening where someone's just waiting for their turn to talk or planning their response while you're still speaking. The kind where he'd remember tiny details weeks later and bring them up casually like they mattered to him. And slowly, she started to feel safe. Not just around him, in her own skin. She hadn't felt that in years, maybe ever. One night, after too much wine and too many stories, he kissed her. It wasn't planned. They were laughing about something stupid. She couldn't even remember what. And then the laughter faded, and the air shifted, and suddenly his hand was on her cheek, and his lips were on hers. Soft, gentle, tentative. Like he was asking permission with every breath. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers, vulnerable in a way that made her chest ache. "Is this okay?" She nodded, her voice barely working. "Yeah," she whispered. "It's okay." And that's how it started. Not with fireworks or grand romantic gestures or movie-perfect moments. Just two broken people finding something whole in each other. Something that felt like it might actually last. They didn't label it at first. Didn't need to. But they became inseparable. He started staying over more nights than not. She'd wake up to him making coffee in her tiny kitchen, humming softly to himself, looking more at peace than she'd ever seen him. He'd leave notes when he had to leave for work early. Little things, silly things. "Don't forget to eat something real today. You're beautiful even when you're grumpy in the morning. See you tonight. I'll bring dumplings." She kept every single one, tucked them into a drawer like treasures. Because for the first time in her life, love felt simple. Not complicated, not transactional, not performative. Just real. He never asked her for anything. Never pressured her. Never made her feel like she owed him something for being kind. And that's why she fell so hard. Because he felt safe. Because he had nothing. Nothing to prove. Nothing to gain. Nothing to hide. Or so she thought. The first crack appeared 3 months in. It was small. So small she almost ignored it. They were lying in bed one night, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy circles on her shoulder, both of them half asleep. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. She felt him tense beneath her. Not a lot. Just enough that she noticed. "You gonna get that?" she asked sleepily. "It's nothing." She lifted her head to look at him. "Doesn't sound like nothing." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. "Just spam. I'll deal with it later." She let it go, settled back against him. But later, that week, it happened again, and again. Always late at night. Always the same pattern. 3 buzzes, then silence, and every time he'd tense up, make an excuse, change the subject. She started paying attention, really paying attention. His phone never rang during the day. He never texted anyone in front of her. When she asked who he talked to, he'd shrug and say he didn't really have friends here, didn't need them. But those alerts kept coming, and something about them felt wrong. One night, curiosity got the better of her. He was in the shower, and his phone was on the bed beside her. She picked it up, told herself she was just checking the time. But that was a lie. The screen was locked, but she could see the notification previews. Except there weren't any. No names, no numbers, no app icons. Just a blank screen with a single line of text that appeared for half a second before disappearing. Encrypted message received. Her stomach twisted. She put the phone down quickly, hands shaking. When he came back, she smiled like nothing had happened. But something had. A seed of doubt. Tiny. Almost invisible. But growing. The second crack came 2 weeks later. He came home at 4 a.m. She woke up to the sound of the door closing. Not loud. Almost careful. When she turned on the light, he was standing in the doorway, blood on his white shirt. She shot up, heart hammering. "Oh my God, what happened?" "I'm fine. You're bleeding. It's not mine." That made it worse. So much worse. She stared at him, pulse racing. "What do you mean it's not yours?" He walked past her into the bathroom without answering. She followed. "Hey, talk to me." He turned on the sink, started washing his hands methodically. His knuckles were bruised, split open, raw. "I got into a fight," he said quietly. "With who?" "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." He looked at her then, really looked at her. And for the first time since they met, she saw something in his eyes she didn't recognize. Something cold. Something dangerous. Something that made her take a step back without meaning to. "I handled it," he said, voice flat. "That's all you need to know." She wanted to push, wanted to demand answers. But something in his tone, in the way he was looking at her, told her not to. So she didn't. She just stood there, watching him clean blood off his hands, and wondered who the hell she was really sleeping next to. After that night, things changed. Subtly at first. He was still sweet, still affectionate, still made her coffee and left notes. But there was a distance now, like a wall had gone up between them that she couldn't see but could definitely feel. She'd catch him staring at nothing, jaw tight, eyes dark and far away. He'd disappear for hours without explanation. And when she asked where he'd been, he'd kiss her forehead and say, "Just work." But she didn't believe him anymore. Because people who work construction or deliveries don't come home with bruised knuckles and blood on their clothes. They don't get encrypted messages at 3 a.m. They don't have that look in their eyes, the one that says they've seen things, done things they'll never talk about. One afternoon, while he was gone, she searched the apartment. She felt guilty doing it, felt like she was betraying him. But the doubt had grown too big to ignore. She didn't know what she was looking for. Proof, answers. Anything that would make sense of the man she thought she knew. She checked drawers, closets, under the bed, behind books. Nothing. He barely owned anything. A few changes of clothes, a toothbrush, that encrypted phone that never left his side. No photos, no documents, no past. It was like he didn't exist outside of this apartment, outside of her. And that scared her more than anything. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. She woke up to find a note slipped under her door. No envelope, no return address, no name, just a single sentence scrawled in neat, deliberate handwriting. "He's not who he says he is." Her hands shook as she read it again. And again. She wanted to ignore it. Wanted to believe it was a prank. A mistake. Some random thing that had nothing to do with her. But deep down, she already knew. Something was wrong. And she needed to know what. That night, when he said he had to go out, she didn't ask questions. She just nodded, smiled, kissed him goodbye like everything was fine. And then she followed him. She stayed far enough back that he wouldn't notice. Watched as he walked through the streets with his head down, hands in his pockets, moving like someone who didn't want to be seen. He didn't look like someone going to a job. He looked like someone going to war. After 20 minutes, he stopped in front of a building. Not just any building. A sleek, modern high-rise with glass doors and marble steps and security guards stationed outside like soldiers. She watched from across the street as the guards straightened when they saw him. One of them opened the door without being asked. The other bowed. Deep and respectful. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She crossed the street, keeping her distance, and slipped inside after a group of businessmen in expensive suits. The lobby was massive. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, people in designer clothes everywhere, moving with purpose. She didn't belong here, and neither did he. Except, he did. She watched from behind a column as he walked toward a private elevator at the back of the lobby. A woman in a sharp blazer approached, him bowing slightly. "Chairman, the files you requested are ready." He nodded. "Thank you." "Chairman." The word echoed in her head like a gunshot. She felt dizzy, felt like the ground was tilting beneath her feet. She moved closer, trying to hear more, trying to understand. That's when he saw her. Their eyes met across the lobby, and the look on his face. Shock, panic, guilt, all of it crashing together in one terrible moment. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She turned and ran. She didn't make it far. He caught up to her outside, grabbing her arm gently but firmly. "Wait, please." She yanked her arm away, stumbling backward. "Don't touch me." "Let me explain." "Explain what?" Her voice cracked, tears burning her eyes. "That you've been lying to me this whole time?" He looked around, jaw tight, eyes scanning the street like someone might be watching. "Not here." "Then where? Your secret office? Your mansion I didn't know about? Where exactly do you want to have this conversation?" People were staring now. Passers-by slowing down to watch the drama unfold. He stepped closer, voice low and urgent. "Please, just come with me. I'll tell you everything." She wanted to say no, wanted to walk away and never look back. But she needed to hear it. Needed to know how badly she'd been fooled. Needed to understand who she'd been sharing her bed with. So she followed him. One last time. He took her to a penthouse. Not an apartment. A penthouse. Top floor of the building she'd just watched him enter like he owned the place. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. Expensive furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Art on the walls that probably cost more than her entire life. She stood in the middle of the room, arms wrapped around herself, staring at him like he was a stranger. Because he was. "Talk." He ran a hand through his hair. Exhaled slowly like he was trying to figure out where to even begin. "My name is Park Jin-woo. I'm the chairman of Hanjin Group, one of the largest conglomerates in Korea. We do everything. Shipping, real estate, technology, pharmaceuticals." She laughed bitterly. "Of course you are. I came here 2 years ago after a situation. I needed to disappear for a while. A situation. Business. Dangerous business. People wanted me dead. Still do." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face now. "So everything you told me was a lie?" "No." He stepped closer. "Not everything. You said you were poor, undocumented, nobody. I was nobody when I was with you. That's why I stayed. You used me. I loved you. Don't. Her voice broke completely. Don't say that word to me. He looked at her like she'd just shot him through the chest. I know I lied, he said quietly. But the person I was with you, that was real. That was the only real thing in my life. Then why didn't you tell me? Because power destroys everything it touches. I've seen it happen over and over. People I cared about. People I loved. All of them destroyed because of who I am. What I do. I didn't want that to happen to us. She wiped her eyes angrily. So you thought lying was better? I thought I could have one thing that was mine. Just mine. Something that wasn't tainted by all the rest of it. She looked around the penthouse. At the life he'd hidden from her. At the wealth. The power. The lies. How long were you planning to keep this up? He didn't answer. Because they both knew the truth. He was never going to tell her. He was going to keep living two lives forever. And she would have never known. She turned to leave. Wait. His voice was desperate now. Cracking. There's something else you need to know. She stopped, hand on the door handle. The people I was hiding from, they know about you now. Her blood ran cold. She turned slowly. What? That note you got, that wasn't random. Someone's watching you. Watching us. They know you're my weakness. She felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. You brought danger to my door? I'm trying to protect you. By lying to me? By dragging me into whatever nightmare you're running from? He stepped closer, voice urgent. I'll fix this. I'll make sure you're safe. How? I'll disappear again. Permanently this time. I'll go back to Korea. Face whoever I need to face. They'll leave you alone if I'm gone. She stared at him, and for a moment, she almost believed that would work. But deep down, she knew better. The damage was done. The truth was out. And disappearing wouldn't save either of them now. The attack came 2 days later. She was walking home from the grocery store, bag in hand, when a black van pulled up beside her. Fast. Aggressive. 2 men stepped out before the vehicle even stopped moving. She didn't have time to scream. They grabbed her, strong hands on her arms, dragging her toward the van. She fought, kicked, scratched, screamed. But they were stronger. Trained. Just as they were about to shove her inside, a gunshot cracked through the air. Loud. Final. One of the men dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. She looked up, gasping. Jin Woo stood 20 feet away, gun in hand, face completely calm. Not scared, not panicked, not even angry. Cold. Empty. Like pulling the trigger was nothing. The second man reached for his weapon. Jin Woo shot him too. Center mass. Just like that. No hesitation. No warning. The body hit the pavement. He walked over, stepping over the corpses like they were nothing more than trash, and pulled her to her feet. Are you hurt? She couldn't speak. Couldn't process what she'd just seen. Couldn't reconcile the man who made her coffee with the man who just killed 2 people without blinking. He grabbed her face gently, forcing her to look at him. Are you hurt? She shook her head, trembling. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her tightly. It's over. I've got you. You're safe. But it wasn't over. She could hear sirens in the distance, see blood pooling on the pavement, feel the weight of what he'd just done settling over her like concrete. And she realized something terrifying. He wasn't pretending to be dangerous. He just was. This was who he'd always been. He took her back to the penthouse. She sat on the couch, numb, staring at nothing while he made phone calls in the other room. She couldn't hear what he was saying. didn't want to. When he came back, he knelt in front of her, hands on her knees. I've handled it. The police won't ask questions. The bodies are gone. You're safe now. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Who are you? He smiled sadly. I'm the man who loves you. That's all that matters. No. She shook her head. That's not all that matters. He stood, running a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding through. I told you. Power destroys everything. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. By lying to me? By protecting you. I didn't ask to be protected. I asked to be loved. And you can't love someone while lying to them every single day. He stared at her. And for the first time, he didn't have an answer. Didn't have a justification. Just silence. She stayed that night. Not because she forgave him. Not because she understood. But because she didn't know where else to go. Didn't know who else she could trust. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while he sat in the chair across the room, watching her, like he was afraid she'd disappear if he looked away. I'm leaving in the morning, she said quietly. He didn't respond. I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know if I ever did. He stood, walking over to the bed slowly. You know me. The man you fell in love with. That was me. The real me. Was it? Or was that just another role you were playing? He flinched like she'd hit him. I don't know how to fix this, he said softly. Maybe you can't. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, he spoke again. If you leave, I won't stop you. But I need you to know that everything I felt with you was real. The simplest, truest thing I've ever had in my entire life. She closed her eyes. Because part of her wanted to believe him. Part of her still loved him. But the other part knew she could never trust him again. Could never look at him without seeing the gun in his hand. The bodies on the pavement. The lies that built their entire relationship. Morning came too fast. She packed her things while he watched from the doorway. Silent. He didn't beg, didn't plead, didn't make promises he couldn't keep. Just stood there with that same sad smile she'd fallen in love with 6 months ago. When she was done, she walked to the door. He followed. At the threshold, she stopped, turned. I need to ask you something. He nodded. If you could go back, would you still lie to me? He didn't answer right away. Took his time, considered it honestly, and that told her everything. I don't know, he admitted finally. Because if I'd told you the truth from the start, you never would have let me in, never would have given me a chance. She felt tears sting her eyes again. You're right, she whispered. I wouldn't have. He stepped closer. So what does that mean? It means we never had a chance. Not a real one. She opened the door. But before she walked through it, she looked back one last time. Are you leaving? His voice was barely audible. Broken. She swallowed hard, tears streaming down her face now. I don't know who I love anymore. And then she was gone. She didn't go far. Just back to that tiny apartment where it all began, where she'd first seen him sitting on the steps looking lost. It felt emptier now, colder, haunted by memories she couldn't escape. She sat on the floor where they used to eat takeout and drink cheap wine and tell each other stories about the lives they'd left behind. And she cried, sobbed until her chest hurt and her throat was raw, because she missed him. Missed the version of him that felt safe. The version that made her laugh and held her when she couldn't sleep and left stupid notes that made her smile. But that version didn't exist. Maybe it never had. A week passed. Then 2. She didn't hear from him. No calls, no texts, no notes slipped under her door. Just silence. Part of her was relieved. The other part felt abandoned. Felt like even his presence had been a lie, and now that she knew the truth, he didn't care anymore. She tried to move on, started looking for jobs again, made plans to leave the city entirely, start somewhere new where nothing reminded her of him. But every night, she'd lie in bed and wonder if he was okay, if he was safe, if he'd gone back to Korea like he said, if he missed her too, or if she'd just been a distraction, a game, something to pass the time while he hid from his real life. The knock came on a Tuesday. 3 sharp raps. Her heart stopped. She walked to the door slowly, hand shaking as she reached for the handle. Opened it. It wasn't him. It was one of the men in suits. The ones who'd called him chairman that night. Everything fell apart. "Miss," the man said, bowing slightly, "I have something for you." He handed her an envelope. Thick, heavy. She took it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter. And a key. She unfolded the letter carefully. His handwriting. Messy and rushed like he'd written it in a hurry. "I told you I'd disappear. I meant it. I've gone back to Korea, to handle things, to make sure you're never in danger again because of me. But I couldn't leave without making sure you were protected. Taken care of. The key is to an account. There's enough money for you to start over anywhere you want. Do whatever you want. Be whoever you want. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you needed, but I'll always be grateful I got to be the man you loved. Even if it was just for a little while. Even if it was built on lies. J." She read it 3 times. Then crumpled it in her fist. Because it wasn't enough. The money, the apology, the explanation. None of it was enough to fix what he'd broken. But late that night, when she couldn't sleep, she pulled out the crumpled letter, smoothed it out carefully, read it again, and this time she cried for different reasons. Not because she was angry, but because she understood. He'd lied to protect her, lied to protect himself, lied because he was scared, genuinely terrified, that the truth would ruin the only good thing he had. And maybe he was right. Maybe the truth did ruin everything. But at least it was real. At least she knew now. She never used the key. Never took the money. Mailed it back to the address on the envelope with a note that said simply, "I don't want your guilt." Because she didn't. She didn't want his pity or his money or his attempts to ease his conscience. She just wanted him. The version that sat on her floor and laughed at bad jokes and made her feel safe for the first time in years. The version that felt like home. But that version was gone. If it ever existed at all. Months later, she moved to a new city. Chicago. Far from everything. Started fresh. Got a job at a bookstore. Made new friends who didn't know anything about her past. Tried to forget. Tried to rebuild herself into someone who didn't carry the weight of betrayal everywhere she went. But some nights, when she was alone in her new apartment, she'd think about him. Wonder where he was. If he was still in Korea. Still running his empire. Still hiding from whoever wanted him dead. And she'd wonder if he ever thought about her. If he missed those quiet nights in her tiny apartment. If he regretted the lie. Or if he regretted telling the truth. A year passed, then another. She built a life, a real one. Started dating again, though nothing ever felt quite right. No one ever made her feel the way he did. And she hated him for that. Hated that he'd ruined her for everyone else. Hated that, even now, even after everything, part of her still loved him. She never got an answer, never got closure. Because love built on lies doesn't get neat endings. It just ends. Messy, painful, incomplete. And you're left wondering forever what was real, what was performance, what was him and what was the mask he wore so well she never saw it coming. And whether it even matters in the end. because the hurt feels the same either way. Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Afro-Korean Story Vault, the hub of great stories. So here's the question that'll keep you up tonight. Can love survive the truth? Or is the lie sometimes kinder? Does knowing someone's real identity destroy what you felt? Or does it make it more real? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you'd forgive him. Tell me if she made the right choice. Tell me if you've ever loved someone who turned out to be a stranger. And if this story hit you the way it hit me, if you felt every word of it, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been lied to. Someone who's done the lying. Someone who understands that love and truth don't always survive each other. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Story Vault for more stories that'll wreck you in the best way possible. Stories about the messy, complicated, devastating truth of what it means to love someone. I'll see you in the next one. Stay broken. Stay honest. Stay human.